Good afternoon, everyone. See, after an energy-packed panel that we had just before, and with the moderator like Belavadi sir, it's going to be very difficult for me to fill that position, but I'll try my best. See, we have actually heard about a lot of crimes where they touch us, right? On an individual basis, they touch us. So, what these economic offenses and cyber crime that siphons money off our individual and personal accounts, the equivalent of it for the enterprises is what ransomware is. So, let's try and understand what's a ransomware attack and how does it affect us? How does it affect the organizations and enterprises? We have esteemed set of panelists here who are very learned in their areas of work. They are very experienced in the areas of cybersecurity. So we are very fortunate to have them. Before I start, I would just request each of them to tell 2 lines about themselves so that all of you can appreciate the kind of experience they are bringing to the panel today. Okay, Dr. Ram Kumar.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Ram Kumar. I work for Volvo Digital IT. I'm with their cybersecurity team. I have about 20 years experience in cybersecurity. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Venkat Ramshet. I'm founder of Flexible IR. I purely work on incident response, which is basically if a company is hit with a ransomware attack, how do they respond to it, right? How do they get prepared for it? This is my day in and day out job. The day I start my job, even now I pray to God, oh God, please save me, right? That's what we all start every day. Like, you never know when ransomware attack happens. It normally happens when you don't want them. So that's where I keep praying, okay, let me be safe today, right?
Elrigu namaskara. Harish ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. Close to 17 years of experience coming in from storage and backup and recovery software solutions. You would have come across most of the industries where we have storage in the back end and then the backup and recovery solutions in the back end, right? How critical is the last line of the defense, which is the backup and recovery solutions for any company today? I mean, I deal with the organizations basically helping them provide the solutions, which is very critical in case of an emergency or a disaster, right? So we will speak across what happens, how we actually recover the data. So probably we will discuss in detail when we have the panelists around.
Thank you, Mr. Ramanujam, sir.
Yeah, my name is Ramanujam. I head Pure Storage India business. We are largely into data management solutions, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Great, thank you. So we will jump right into the topic, but first let us understand what we are talking about. See, I understand the audience is a mix of people from the industry, those who are enthusiastic about cybersecurity, the wannabe hackers, and college students. I think we have all a mix of audience here. So first let us understand what ransomware attack really is. Okay, so how does it play on the day-to-day operations of an organization? How does it impact? And also among the various different cyber threats that are there, why is it that ransomware is actually becoming more and more rampant? Why is it being chosen by the malicious actors, threat actors as the threat? Nowadays we see so many cases, right? So what are your opinions? Maybe we'll start with Mr. Venkat.
Yes. So, see, primarily, right, if you look at, let's quickly define what is a ransomware attack, right? You open your laptop, suddenly you found a message telling, okay, all your files are encrypted, now you cannot do anything. Please contact me and you need to pay so much. You need to pay me 10,000 rupees, right? That's what typical ransomware attack is. Now, question for all of you is, if in case you see this attack, right? Okay, in fact, the bigger question is, why do we see this happening more and more, right? So far, if you see at the conference, we were talking about cybercrime. And this was primarily limited to at a national scope, right? But if you look at a ransomware attack today, it's happening globally. And why is it rampant? It's because of the cost advantage, right? If someone does an attack, the kind of money he gets is huge. It could be in terms of millions, right? Where we talk about, in some of the cyber crimes, we're talking about few thousand rupees. But now, here, the return on investment could be much larger. So that is the reason the ransomware attacks are much more rampant. At the same time, the tools, right? So to attack a company or an organization or individual, you need tools. Now these tools are available at very low cost and easy to use. So it's a marketplace. There is something called ransomware as a service. So you can buy credential access, you can buy access to some of these tools and deploy. So even a student today can kind of 8th standard student or 10th standard, anyone who wants to do something on the offensive side, he has the tools, right? So with tool sets becoming available, things becoming easy, return on investment becoming higher, the possibilities of ransomware attack is on the higher rise.
Thank you. Any thoughts, Dr. Ramkumar?
I think Sir has already covered, but just to add, the anonymity it is offered by the internet makes these threat actors emboldened to indulge in ransomware. And Sir said the ransomware as a service, just we know software as a service, platform as a service. So even cybercrime as a service is a phenomenon that has been going on the last few years. So it's easy for any non-technical person also. You don't have to have great knowledge and skills to deploy. You can buy and deploy ransomware attacks, right? The other thing is the hard to trace cryptocurrencies. So all these ransomware ask ransom payment in cryptocurrencies. 10-15 years back, before advent of ransomware in the mainstream cyber attack, it was very difficult for hackers to make money out of the international banking system. They cannot just pull off money. But today, with all the controls in place, international cooperation on financial crimes, anti-crimes, so it's very difficult to pull off the money from the financial system, global banking system. So the easy way for them, for the criminals, is to trade in cryptocurrencies. And whether it is Bitcoin or anything, it's very hard to trace. So that is again a major factor. Beyond that, the pandemic-induced work from home and now hybrid mode, it has introduced many IT vulnerabilities. So that is being exploited by these threat actors. And beyond that, the geopolitical risks that we are facing today, not just in the recent Israel-Hamas war, it was become more prominent during the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the continuing ongoing war now. So many nation-state actors, countries are supporting ransomware gangs, what we call as the APT gangs, Advanced Persistent Threat Gangs. They have bottomless access to resources, funding, skill set, tools, so supported by different countries. Of course, the Western nations like to portray 4 countries as the axis of evil, namely Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. So most of these countries indulge in ransomware as a quick way to make money, and that is actually the ecosystem is well oiled. And the victims also paying the ransom to get back to business or to deliver operations, it also emboldens them. And of course, the crime conviction is very less. I've not seen any major conviction. Of course, locker bit recently, if you had followed media, there was one major anti-ransomware action by international agencies, law enforcement agencies, and instances like these are far and few in between, right? So that's my take on it.
Thank you. And so three primary points, if you can note them. One is, see, the ransomware is actually becoming an organized crime. The perpetrators are actually organizing themselves, offering the crime as a service, and it's becoming so organized that it is becoming so easy for anybody to just take that service and perpetrate the ransomware attacks. So that is one very important thing. Second is, there are 2 reasons why anybody would want to do it, right? The threat actor is either behind money. I mean, money, of course, lies at the bottom of everything, right? The second reason could be, the nation state actors. There some specific harm to be inflicted on any systems or infrastructures or organizations. So that could be another motive behind the ransomware attacks. See, ransomware attacks are like, it was told earlier, an attack where you take the systems and software, you kidnap them, right? You hijack the systems and, trade for ransom. So it's an equivalent of that. So now, Mr. Ramanujam, so what do you think are the top 2 considerations that a company or a chief information security officer of an organization should have in mind? Top 2 considerations, when dealing with how to prevent, how to safeguard oneself against the ransomware attacks.
Yeah, so I think you would obviously want to prevent any sort of an attack, and you take all sorts of measures to ensure that there is no unaccounted device or any device which should not be into the network, or any user who should not have an access to the network, and any such aspects, right? All of them are prevented. That's the first thing I would imagine that most security officers would do. And the second one, obviously, being that how quickly can we recover? And that's possibly the most important aspect today. The reason being, everything is 24/7, right? Every piece of industry, every organization, every business is 24/7. So the question then comes is, how do we continue with our operations? How fast can we recover, even in the event of a ransomware attack, right? So these are the 2 aspects which the security officer, chief security officer, should keep in mind when he or she is trying to design the entire IT framework for the organization.
Thank you, sir. Harish, what would your thoughts be?
So, if you understand ransomware, I would just step back a little bit, right? If you look at ransomware attacks, what we have seen, there are 3 generations of ransomware attacks we have seen, right? The first generation, basically you would receive very nice mails, very nice links to click in, right? That's where the virus or the malicious code gets into your infrastructure. What is the code actually trying to do in your infrastructure? It's trying to learn the infrastructure, right? That means it's going in and around the servers or your production applications, trying to learn what things you have. So what are the security factors that you have implemented already, right? And then it will start encrypting your data. It learns which is actually the most important data for you, right? That means it says, okay, this is my data, which has been very highly accessed. So it will start encrypting that particular data. That day is when they will encrypt, they will start interacting with your customer, right? That means, okay, this is the amount of money that you will have to give back in order to gain your data access back, right? So this is the first kind of generation. So, okay, customers, what they started doing is they started recovering the data from the backups, right? Now the second generation, so the hackers became little more intelligent. So they started learning, okay, which is the backup solution these guys have. Started destroying the deletions of the retentions itself. The backups are gone, right? Now second generation came in, so they are like afraid. Now there are no backups now. What will we do? So the third generation, okay, we will scare the customers or we will scare the organization, saying that, okay, we steal your data. The reputation of the company is in stake, right? That means the third generation is very, very scary. That means your reputation is gone, your data is lost, and at the same time it is given in the public, right? Now the considerations what we have to have specifically to prevent any kind of these attacks. I mean, just to again give you one simple example, if you look at your own house, what all things do you have in your house to prevent somebody coming into your house? Multiple gates, multiple doors, security guards probably today in the world, security cameras, probably there are lockers in your home. The most valuable thing for you is gold, right? Or probably the cash. Where do you keep all this cash or gold? Probably not at home. Maybe in lockers in banks, right? The same way, I mean, if you look at the whatever the ransomware prevention what we have, first and foremost, multi-layered security, right? You have multiple security that we implement at endpoint, applications, web layer, then the firewalls. Then comes your applications where you prevent your data being hacked. You encrypt the data. So end-to-end encryption, right? And then the last line of the defense, safely keep your data backed up in 3 different locations. So what you used to do, you keep your gold or cash in a bank. That means it's completely offline. It is not accessible at all. So that's your vault. So what we recommend is have a third site or a backup copy which is in a different site altogether, right? That means it's the safest copy, it's the last line of your defense. Nobody can hack that particular data, right? So if you ask us consideration, keep your multi-layered security, network segmentation, keep the backup copies in different segments, your application in different segments, it becomes very hard for a hacker, right? Keep changing your passwords every 30 to 90 days, or probably every 30 days, always better, so that it becomes very hard for anybody to attack your data. The last is keep your backups as safe as possible.
Thank you. So yeah, some very good points. Yeah, no unauthorized access, no unnecessary access. Nobody should enter your network, your systems, if they are not supposed to. So you have to ensure that. That is what came up as the first point. And second, have multi-layered security. Ensure that what is valuable to you is actually safeguarded in the best way possible. You know, have third sites, have air-gapped sites, isolated sites, so that even if somebody gets into your network, he is not able to access what is the most valuable thing for you, right? See, but if you look at this ransomware, right, like was said in the previous panel also, see, it's not a matter of how many people have fallen prey to it or how many people are victims of a cybercrime. It's a matter of when. It's not a matter of whether anybody will fall prey to a cybercrime or a ransomware attack. So in the wake of an attack that an organization suffers, what are the top 2 methods to respond to the situation? So we'll start with Venkat. You are the IR expert here, right? So we'll start with you, Mr. Venkat.
Yes. So Tim, friends, just want to clarify a couple of terminologies. See, cybersecurity is all about cybersecurity is all about terminologies, right? We were talking about threat actors, ransomware attackers, adversaries, right? So in case there's an attack, first thing is, please note that the attack will happen exactly when you do not want them. Definitely don't assume that it's going to happen on a Monday 10:30 when you're in office or in your school. It is going to happen exactly when you want. For example, I had a recent case where someone was getting married. He was about to tie the knot at 12 o'clock. The company is attacked around 11 o'clock, right? So that's how you are going to land up. That's typically your expectations has to be. Right? So first thing, I'll give you a set of bullet points of how do you respond to it. Key thing is not to respond in panic. You need to respond in a much more planned, structured way. I think that is the number 1 mantra of it. Second, understand the context, right? Is it one machine impacted? One of the servers got impacted? Is it the HR machine, right? Or is it the CEO's machine? Or is it the entire plant? Or is it the entire college, right? So if you see, colleges are today under big ransomware attacks. So you need to see what is impacted first. Then start containing. The first thing is, how do you contain the spread, right? If it is on one machine, please note that the attackers are very smart. They move across. They want to get everywhere. They are like a worm, right? So now you want to stop the spread. So first is immediate containment, understand the scope, understand the context, and at the same time, there are a lot more steps, but to keep it more simplified, there is one saying, if you know your adversary better, you can defend better. So I'll show you one slide. It is kind of the secret sauce, right? Okay, so it's a takeaway for all of you, right? Is how does the attacker attack, right? How does the adversary attack? So here is something called a MITRE attack framework, which tells exactly how the attacker would come in, right? The attacker would normally go from left to right. If you see, He does something kind of a reconnaissance, then he goes from, he understands the victim, goes to initial access to execution. But do not worry about it. You can take a screenshot of it. But the goal is, he has an impact. I mean, he has a goal to take away money, or he wants to take away, he wants to destroy your machines. So he goes from left to right, and this is something called the modus operandi, right? So key is to understand the attacker, understand his motive, understand this metrics. He might not do all the things, but what he does is some of these things to get into your network, right? So again, this has fundamental steps. There are a lot more. There are a lot more from communication perspective, getting business as usual. But these are the fundamentals of getting kind of responding to a ransomware attack.
Thank you. Mr. Ramanujam, any thoughts from your side?
I think, where we come from is, while I think the friends are here to guide about prevention of a ransomware attack and so on, we pretty much do very well in the area of a very, very quick restore in the event of a ransomware attack, right? I think, like I said, with businesses being pretty much 24/7 now, the question is how quickly can you get back up onto your legs and serve your customers, right? Because every hour of not being in operation not only means loss of revenue, but actually also means losing your customers possibly to other alternatives. I'll give you an example of a payment gateway. When we all through our mobile, when we try and pay anybody for that matter, right? We go through a payment gateway, and then that's how the transaction happens. There are instances where a payment gateway, if they're down for an hour, they actually lose. You switch to another gateway. Do you wait for the gateway to come up? You don't. You just switch to another gateway and make the payment transaction happen. Correct. So that's a loss of revenue for them. That's a transaction money lost for them, correct? So it's absolutely important that they don't go down, right? And that's possibly is the crux of how quickly one can recover in the event of an attack. And like Mr. Ramkumar said, you just don't know when that entire attack will happen. It's possibly at the most unexpected time. It can happen at your peak business hours or offline during the evening or whenever it is. The question comes back again as to how quickly you can recover and get back.
Yes. Speed of recovery is paramount. So that is what decides whether you will continue to be in the business or not, right? So, with that, you look at ransomware, there are two things which are, typically possible. One is, of course, there is a loss of revenue, loss of, you might end up paying by a ransom. So there's a loss of money. And also the ransomware perpetrators, the threat actors do not just encrypt the data and, religiously give it back when you pay the ransom. They might actually exfiltrate the data. So which will lead to further damages. It could lead to lawsuits. It's a lot of damage that the ransomware attacks cause. Now the question is, to pay or not to pay? So what are the thoughts? Yeah, Dr. Ramkumar first.
To pay or not to pay is a big question. It's a business decision. Ideally, law enforcement agencies, especially the FBI, advocates not to pay. Okay? The point is, the more you pay, you are actually perpetuating and incentivizing this ransomware ecosystem, where all these APT gangs or hacker groups would be emboldened to continue to be in this criminal business. So that is the official stance which the government and law enforcement agencies are recommending, not to pay. But practically, as Sir earlier said, you will be losing your business. You will not be able to continue to deliver. It will make you lose revenue and reputation. So think of, I'll give an example. How many of us, I'm sure all of us use food apps, right? Popular food apps in India. So what if one of the, God forbid, I'm just giving an example. What if one of those food apps is a victim of ransomware and we are all hungry souls and trying to order and the app is not going through or order is not going through. So think from the company's point of view, what they would do ideally. though government says not to pay, but they have to be in the business, otherwise they lose revenue to the competitor. So they obviously would decide to pay through cryptocurrencies. So that's a very hard decision, but end of the day, they want to be in business and make revenue, right? So that's a dilemma which all companies go through. And if you look at the past instances where victims like Colonial Pipeline, I think few years back in the US, one of the largest fuel conduit companies which supplies fuel in the United States. The eastern part of their pipeline operations was impacted due to ransomware attack, and half of the eastern US East Coast was impacted. Not just general public and the traveling public, even critical services were impacted. They couldn't fuel up their vehicles. And that kind of critical infrastructure support, you need to quickly come back to business. So they chose to pay. They chose $4.4 million to pay. Or even in education institutions, I can give you an instance of University of California. When they were victims, they chose to pay $1.4 million. Of course, in the last few years, there is a law that has come up in the US which mandates companies to report mandatorily this kind of ransomware attacks and the payments they did. But that's the way to go. End of the day, it's a decision by business exigencies and what works best for them. That's my take for this.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to add? Yeah, sure, sir.
I think today there is technology which is available, which sort of guarantees, right, that you don't, any organization does not suffer in the event of a ransomware attack. So in such a situation, why would anybody want to pay? I guess the situation is that organizations do not use such technologies which are available. I mean, for example, we guarantee ransomware recovery, right? I mean, there are organizations which do that, right? And there are service providers who do that. So I think organizations would have to start using some of these technologies which are available to them, rather than falling prey to any such malicious intent.
So better invest in technologies which would help you recover fast rather than end up paying ransom.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
you need to have the utmost security so that you never fall in the prey, right? So obviously we do not want to have that encourage to pay it, because it gives the hackers an added advantage that, okay, this guy pays, so one more prey. I mean, they will be at least in a mindset that, okay, we are getting money, let's not leave it, we will go attack again one more customer, right? So it goes on and on if you start paying out. So we'll have to somewhere break it down. That's where we say or recommend not to pay, and then invest in the security and adopt the technologies.
Yeah, so better pay a technology company and safeguard yourself rather than pay the perpetrators of the crime. Okay, good thoughts, thank you. And see, whatever we have discussed so far, be it the prevention, protection, response in case of such an attack, etc. So do you think these can apply to organizations of all sizes, or should we look at different responses, different strategies and approaches based on the size of the organization? So for example, there is an SMB or a MSME or a very large corporation. Do you think these strategies differ?
I can just start,
Sure.
I don't think the strategies should differ, right? Because at the end of the day, all the organizations depend upon technology today. Technologies are the fundamental piece of doing business, right? It's only the question as to how you are consuming the technology, from where you are consuming the technology. So the organization must ensure that sufficient protection or recovery mechanisms are in place, okay, before they get into using a particular service.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I think large organizations with deep pockets can afford to have a full-fledged cybersecurity team with all the bells and whistles. They can go for all the technology controls, processes, and the right skill sets, right, in terms of the workforce, security workforce. But when it comes to SMEs or small and medium enterprises or startups, they don't want to spend too much on cybersecurity because they can't afford to. And ransomware attack can be devastating. They can just fold up, simple as that. So in this kind of scenario, I think they should at least go for a kind of a third-party consultant who can help them. If they cannot afford a full-time team, at least they should look at consulting experts who can set up the basic controls for them. There are companies which are offering retainership, how to handle incident, right? Large organizations that can afford to have an incident response team and have playbooks, they can rehearse, test, and improve. And also the concept of cyber insurance is there. But of course, now cyber insurance companies are also worried that the ransomware is actually a bottomless pit. They cannot afford to underwrite these kind of payments. So they are also doing a lot of due diligence. And at one point in time, insurance leaders are saying this is not sustainable. The business model of covering ransomware payments is not sustainable. And in certain specific countries like France, cyber insurance is no longer available because the government says, to discourage payments to the ransomware gangs, they don't want the insurance companies to cover it. So like this, in bits and pieces in different countries, you have, specific laws or practices that are happening. So at best, what SMEs and startups can do is take advantage of all these consulting services that can do a world of good. Thanks.
Thank you. So as Venkat and Harish, as you add to this, can you also touch upon some of the technologies that are present today which can help in dealing with such attacks or preventing such attacks?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at technologies which we adopt specifically to prevent any kind of an attack, first and foremost, the security, which we spoke across, right? Now, security is something which prevents known viruses or known threats that is already in the world today, right? It is something like this, right? I mean, we have been taking vaccines since ages. That's preventive, right? Whatever child memories that we have of vaccinations, it's all preventive. That means it's only prevents known viruses. But what about COVID, which came in? We did not had any kind of vaccination, right? So we had to bring in vaccination. So similarly, security adoption is very, very important, specifically to at least prevent whatever which is known to us. Somebody who is already attacking the entire world, and we know that, okay, there is a cure for it, why don't we adopt it? So that's where the security comes into picture. But in terms of unknown things, yeah, we have to be prepared. That's where the backup comes into picture, or having multiple storage copies comes into picture. The encryption comes into picture, where we have the utmost security of the backup copies in multiple sites to prevent it, right? I mean, SMBs, yeah, I mean, they need not adopt technologies which are very costly. Like we said, probably they can just keep a backup copy in a hard disk. Very simple thing to do it, right? I mean, very small startups I can just name, right?
Okay.
So like if you look at again some of the older generations, if you look at it, they used to just keep the golds in some rice box, some offsite. It's the same, right?
Okay.
Now what they can do is just keep a hard disk separate in some place.
Okay.
That's it. So there are various ways. Yes, I mean, if you look at it, technologies are various which can help them recover. At the same time, now we have threat detection capabilities like he mentioned. We have vulnerability scan engines which does scans of sleeper cells. Now the ransomware attack comes in not the day one, right? It settles in your infrastructure for almost a month.
Okay.
So threat detection helps us to do that.
Great. I would like to open up the questions from the audience, but before that, one question from my side to the panelists. I mean, it's open to anyone. Dr. Ramkumar talked about a regulation in France which discourages payment of ransom to the threat actors. Do you think there should be some kind of a push or a goading that the regulatory bodies, the governments should do in order that enterprises and organizations are protected from this? Is there should there be some safeguard in the regulation itself? What are your thoughts about it?
I'm not aware, but I would imagine that there would be a need to inform the regulatory authority if there is any attack by the, I mean, the organization has to go to their corresponding regulator and inform that this is the attack I've had and this is the ransomware demand or whatever. So I would guess that somewhere it is getting documented or recorded, whatever you say, on what's happening in that specific area. Should we have a law against payment of ransomware? I mean, that's a good way to begin, definitely.
So do you think that will discourage people who are perpetrating ransomware attack, because anyway they know that in this country it is prohibited by law to pay ransom, right? I mean, yeah, your thoughts, Venkat?
A couple of things from the law enforcement perspective is, see, one is the key thing is, see what you're seeing, right, on ground. See, what we're seeing is some of the law enforcement agencies, they're trying to bring down the ransomware attackers now, right? I mean, of late, if you're looking at some of the news, the Lockbit ransomware family, right? Again, I'm introducing you to a lot of concepts here. So, I mean, as young minds, you can take this as your careers, right? So the law enforcement agencies across the world, a few of them got together powerfully and they brought down the infrastructure of these ransomware attack families, right? So there's a collective things that are happening from the law enforcement agencies. Again, it could be something like, you need to understand here, the attackers are much smarter, right? So even if you bring them down, today they are under the latest technologies, the generative AI technologies, the cloud technologies, where your infrastructure has gone down, you can actually bring them up somewhere else very fast, right? Today it's something called, if all of you, some of your developers would know your infrastructures on cloud, there is something called blue-green deployments, there is something called Ansible scripts, where your entire infrastructure can be brought up in, say, a few minutes, right? So even if the law enforcement agency today brings down something, it's easy for someone else to bring up somewhere else, right? So today we are in an area or a world where things are changing so fast, the adversaries are much smarter than us. Law enforcement agencies, definitely they have got a lot of things to do from their side. They can bring down some of the adversaries. At the same time, it's awareness, right? Awareness, case studies. I feel it's a combined effort where it's international campaigns, right? It's today no more happening at a individual level or a local level. It's a collateral damage. As we started the discussion, there are a couple of wars going on. So now it's a much more complex situation. The attackers are getting better and better. Their modus operandi is better. And they are more collective. It's a ransomware as a family, right? As a marketplace. So there's a lot more things possible. Again, from law enforcement, primarily, again, the key thing is to be united, to get the adversaries down. At the same time, awareness, being united.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
I'd like to add my perspective. So as Ashok sir mentioned earlier, it's not a question of if, whether we will become a victim, at least from the corporate perspective. It's a question of when. It doesn't matter whether you are a large multinational, a branded multinational, or an unknown mom and pop store. If there is a loophole, the hackers are going to exploit. So my take is, okay, it's my personal take. If law and enforcement brings in, some mandate or through a legislation that states that paying ransom to these APT gangs or hacker groups is illegal, that will probably incentivize the companies to invest in proper security technologies for putting in place the controls, the processes, and build in the required skill set. Today, we do not have any incentives, right? So that is, and we do not have a law that actually bars paying ransomware. And that is actually helping these criminals to, know for sure that if you hold them for ransom, their network, their IT infra, or their data. Today we are also talking about double extortion. So it is not just ask money or cryptocurrencies for giving you back the decryption keys. They also blackmail stating we need more cryptocurrencies for releasing your data. If you don't give the data, we are going to publish in the dark web or monetize some way. So they make more money. So again, there is no guarantee, even if you pay the cryptocurrencies they ask, that you would be able to recover the money. So better if my take or humble opinion is, if government brings in a law, already there is a law where you need to report any kind of cyber incidents, and any kind of data exfiltration or data loss or theft or security incident is needs to be reported to the certain directives, right? As per the certain directives, as far as India is concerned. And of course, you have other legislations world over, notably the GDPR and stuff. Now, question is, in the Indian context, if the government works on bringing a legislation where ransomware payments are illegal and put in place some incentives for companies to invest in bolstering their cybersecurity initiative, that would do a whole world of good. Today, an impact on due to a cyber attack on a corporation is just not that corporation. It impacts society, especially B2C businesses. It impacts the society as a whole, right? And cybersecurity experts are not only protecting the companies or the data, we are actually securing the society. So I would conclude with that.
Yeah, thank you. Good thoughts. Maybe we will just open up
So a couple
for a few questions.
With the interest of time, we'll take 2 questions
Sure.
now.
2 questions.
Yeah, one question here.
Yeah, my name is Hanumant Kulkarni from Vision Consulting. So it's ransomware is basically apaharan or kidnapping, what we see in the society. Now in the IT, yeah, it's happening. My question to panelists is, do you see this ransom attacks only for corporate organizations or for individuals also? Number one. Number two, to Harish, you mentioned about backup. So whether any of the ransomware victim, whether he has said, no, I'm not going to pay you a single pie, but I can use my backup or BCMS, business continuity. Do you have any statistics around that one? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, on the second question, so we have our own customers wherein they have been attacked, and we have completely recovered the data for them. We have customer case studies. I cannot name it. You can just go and then check in our own Cohesity public portal. So you have the use case there. You can study there. The customer has recovered the entire data. They have said no to the organization, saying that we will not pay. We have recovered our data, and then we are doing the business as usual.
Okay, the next question's from here.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Pavan Kumar. The question is open for anyone from the panel. One of you suggested that there is something called as threat detection. So I am working in a company, and I am familiar about the SOC team and the penetration testing team. So when it comes to threat detection, how do you implement it in terms of a corporate structure so that it works efficiently? And the second part is how to improvise the number of detections when you do, because there is a good chance that you do 10 threat huntings per day, or you look for something and you end up finding nothing. So how do you justify that? One is implementation part, and the other one is increasing the number of identifications during threat detection.
Okay, so when it comes to threat detection, there are various levels at where the threat detection happens. The first level is at the security software level, which runs the scan engines whenever the data lands in on the application, right? Now, second level of threat detection happens when there is a backup copy which is landing on a Cohesity platform, or any kind of a backup copy which lands on the backup platform. Right now, this scan engine is just running on each and every file it sees on the platform, or on that particular storage, or on that particular application server, right? Now, there is a defined set of rules which have been set specifically based on the signatures what we have seen in the past. So that means you can just go and then see that there are some set of YARA rules that has been defined, right? Now, based on the YARA rules that have been defined earlier, there is a threat detection happens, and it detects the files. It says, okay, these are the infected files, and this also says, okay, these are the matched YARA rules. And then if you just go and then search for that particular YARA rule, you will see, okay, this is the kind of infection which has happened.
Yeah, any other thoughts?
Yeah, so just to add to this, right? If you look from a ransomware attack, the threat detection is at 2 levels, right? One is, today if an attack happens, it could be something called an external detection, right? Someone tells your website is down, I'm not able to work on your apps, right? So that's a different kind of threat detection. It's called external threat detection, right? And this is dangerous because the moment external threat detection happens, you don't have time. You have to respond fast, or the news is out in media or Twitter or anywhere of the social channels. Now, if it is internal detection, that's where there will be triggers, there will be alerts from your SOC environment, and there will be all early warnings or late warnings. That's where you operationalize how to handle these alerts, which typically could become incidents to crisis. So again, threat detection, internal, external. If it is internal, you have some time to respond to it.
See, the topic is vast and the implications are so high. In fact, this last question that was asked about threat detection itself is a subject of a full day seminar, if not more. So yeah, we acknowledge that there could be many more people with many more questions, but yeah, the time is limited. I think what follows now is lunch. So any of you still want to have a chat, the panel is going to be there for some time.
There's one final question here. He's been waiting. So.
Oh, okay.
Myself Yodan from Nagarjuna College of Management Studies. My question is, how is AI technology contributing towards the increased ransomware protection or attacks?
Okay, so I'll start answering that. I mean, I'll not take away the opportunity from the panelists, but that's a topic which is so dear to me because I mean, I was actually surprised that nobody is asking that question. Now that it is here, let me answer. See, what AI is actually doing now is, weaponizing even mediocre hackers. See, earlier, somebody who is not really a talented hacker would just stick to regular exploits like OWASP Prop 10 and try to do it, right? But what AI is doing is AI is empowering them to actually write more sophisticated ransomwares, more sophisticated ways to exploit existing weaknesses. So that is what AI is actually doing. So it's really, it's like giving a, some weapon of mass destruction to somebody, who doesn't even know the impact of, using such a weapon, right? So that's what AI is doing. But thankfully, on the other side also, AI is now being put to use to see how some of these can be countered, right? Some of these, these threats could be countered by using AI. So how can we actually fuzz the attacker, right? So how do we divert the attacker into a honeypot or into a deception system? So these kind of things are also happening using AI. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, and it's a topic that requires much more deliberation. But yeah, I would stop here and maybe let.
So I mean, if you look at the AI based approach, I mean, every product today in the world, everybody says, okay, we have AI intelligence built in on the platform, right? Now, what AI is going to do is basically give you a security posture saying that, okay, there are various ways to look at it to adhere to the rules. Have you adopted to the rules? First and foremost, whenever there is a ransomware attack, the DNS gets compromised. Why? Because the entire organization information is with DNS. So all the server information, the IP address, naming convention, everything comes out of the DNS server, right? So the hacker first attacks the DNS. So this AI will start looking at, okay, have you first of all protected your DNS? Is NTP password there? Have you rotated your passwords properly? And the next level is the permissions, which generally on the files. Where is the weak point? Which actually has the weakest area in your infrastructure, right? Or when it comes to the architecture, have you secured your infrastructure? The next AI comes in the threat detection, where it sees the pattern of the files coming in. So whenever there is a ransomware attack, the files gets encrypted. That means there is a change in the data, right? So immediately it alerts to the organization or within the IT admin saying that there is a ransomware attack. There could be malicious code which is running within your infrastructure. I mean, there are various ways. So AI is very vast kind of topic. I mean, each and every layer has an AI today.
So I guess the key thing is the tools that we use, right, for defensive purpose, they are equally available to the adversaries, right? At all phases of matrix, which is what the modus operandi of the attacker, they have AI capabilities all across. At the same time, if you look from generative AI perspective, your social engineering attacks, your phishing attacks could be more targeted, right? I mean, you can, as an example, the kind of emails that can be composed could be a lot more articulated. Someone, say from any of the four impacted, adversarial nations, they can, say they have limitations of a language. They can create very well targeted, articulated messaging to bring very, very real life phishing attacks.
See, sorry folks, the topic is so interesting that there are more and more points coming out. So yeah, I think
I'd not take too much time. Just I'm very much thankful for the questioner for asking this very pertinent question. I would just want to leave with this thought. Maybe it's a food for thought. You can research more. AI for cybersecurity and cybersecurity for AI are two different things. So please learn more about it. You will get a lot of insights. Thank you.
great. Thank you so much for your patient hearing, and I'm sure you will take away something which you would probably learn more. There are a lot of young minds here, so you should stand as defense between the governments, the organizations, and the attackers and the adversaries. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, NewsFirst, and the organizers for the opportunity for all of us. Yeah, at this note, let me conclude. Yeah.